Hi, I'm Franne McNeal with HR Energy, and I'm here interviewing a series of entrepreneurs who are going to share their entrepreneurial journey with you. Each week we'll get a little piece of their experience, how they started, why they started, what got them excited, and they'll share that with you. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of entrepreneurs, well, folks who've decided that they're ready for entrepreneurism. And with me today is Dr. Noel Weeks Jr. He's an entrepreneur who's starting a nonprofit, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he's doing and why he's doing it. What does it take to be an entrepreneur? On a personal level, do you need a lot of money? Do you need a lot of guts? Is it some combination of the two?
Basically, I'd say perseverance, number one. Perseverance is absolutely important. Money depends upon the project you're working on. With my project, I basically started out initially when I was not really sure how I was going to approach it. The budget was very large. But after going through my business plan and refining things, it's actually now I minimized the budget tremendously, and do much of my work out of pocket, but it's kind of bootstrapping it, as it were.
Okay, now, business plan, bootstrapping, less money? Wait a minute, all these things sound kind of inconsistent with what a lot of people think about entrepreneurship. Why did you do a business plan if you knew what you wanted to do?
Very good question. I did a business plan because, one, I was told I had to do one,
Okay.
which is very important.
Good.
And then once I got behind that and I said, okay, people kept mentioning it when I was taking courses at New York City's Business Solutions and at the Kaufman Center. They mentioned that this business plan is very important. It's not just the lifeblood of your business. It's a blueprint of how things get done. So basically it takes an idea and it formalizes a structure so you can see your business from different points of view, and you know how to respond to different things that come up because you know your market, you know what you are able to do, you know where you can find help. That's just it's a 360 of all the business that you need to do to make your business work. And That was why it was very, very important to get it done.
Well, I like that idea of a 360. So in having the 360, why did you end up projecting needing less money than you originally thought?
Because I realized, one, with the economy the way it is today is one thing, because I'm making my business a little bit different as an entrepreneur, because I'm working as a nonprofit, which is a 501c3, which people can give donations to the organization, and those donations are tax deductible. But I find that with my project, it's just easier to go that way. But I find that keeping the cost low and the overhead low especially is very important, because basically other foundations or whatever, people look at your business and say, well, how much money is going to actually the program that you're running? How much money is going to the overhead? And when your overhead is too high, they're like, this person's not being effective with his money, not being effective with his time. And so therefore I have to go back over and whittle out things here and there, which also meant too, as whittling out certain ideas and things I had planned initially, I got more real about what a business really is. And also got real too about the fact that, yes, you have to delegate certain authorities to other people, but there's different ways you can do it. You can actually go out and hire a lawyer, or you can go through a clearinghouse and get one at a lower price. Like, I'm very lucky that I got lawyers from SCAD and ARPS, but I got them actually free, pro bono, through another service, than the clearinghouse, because I have a very public service idea.
Okay.
So, you look for those opportunities and you try to seek them out.
Okay, so you have a nonprofit.
Right.
So are you really an entrepreneur?
I consider myself a budding one, only because I've been through the process, and I've actually taken several courses with the Small Business Association, also with New York City Business Solutions, and with Kaufman. So for the last 9 months or so, I've been very active in terms of what a business person does and what's supposed to learn its foundation. So I had that foundation in me. So I consider myself a entrepreneur, but one on his way.
Okay. So then I'm going to put you to the entrepreneur's test.
Okay.
And that is, for those of you out in the audience, you know that there's, in theory, this situation that every entrepreneur gets. And that is that they're in the elevator with person X, and they've got 30 seconds to tell that person what their business is all about.
Right.
So we're going to start the clock, and in 30 seconds or less, tell us, what is your idea?
My idea simply is I want to take medical information and simplify it for patients so that they can understand it easier. And not just take the text of that information and make it easier, because right now text is at an 8th grade level in most institutions. I'm going to put it at a 6th grade level, at least. But also with that text, I'm going to add videotapes of patients who've also experienced the same diseases. And therefore they have a context where they can take the text and the patient's interviews and get a better idea of what the idea was, what's to expect, what's coming ahead of them and down the road when it comes to actually treatments, plans, which hospitals to go to, which clinics to go to. So therefore they get a better idea of how to take care of themselves better and take a proactive interest in their own medical care.
Do you have a tagline for your business?
Be healthy.
Be healthy. Okay.
Nothing simpler than that.
And what's the name of your nonprofit organization?
Health, Science, Education, and basically I think it says it all right there, HSE.
Okay. So when are you going to start this nonprofit? You've done the business plan?
Done the business plan and finish that up now. I'm just editing it in small details. But basically the next step for me is to file my 501c3 application with the government, because basically to get the tax deduction status, I need that 501c3 done, which will be done shortly. And once I get approval from them, then I can start my business officially. So
do you have a startup budget?
Yeah, I have a startup budget right now. Basically, it's, like I said, I whittle things down to basically less than $500 to get things started.
Did you say $500?
That's what I said, $500, yes.
$500.
Just to get it up, to get it right off the ground. That first, say, the doors open, say July 1st. $500 in my pocket, I can get my business started. Okay.
Are you going to have investors?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be looking for people to actually definitely take to get donations from. I'll be looking at foundations. I'll also be looking at we have some other. I met some people at the Kaufman Institute who came to visit our class, and they're working on different types of way to get donors and organizations together.
Is your service of benefit to the physicians or of benefit to the people who have the disease?
Basically, it's benefit to first and foremost to the patient. That's my critical concern. I care about them, and I want them to get the best help they can get. Now, basically, for them to get that best help, they need to basically empower themselves. They got to say, okay, fine, I'm in this situation, I have this disease, I've just got diagnosed with this, whatever it may be. What do I do now? Come to my site, and I'll give you the information that you need to say, okay, this is basic information that I need now. Let me go talk to my doctor, and I can work with him or her and get a better idea where I go from here.
Okay, so what were people doing before you came up with this great idea? I mean, I'm sure there were magazines or people could talk with their friends. I mean, why are those alternatives not as effective as what you're proposing?
Well, one, there are definitely there are different sites out there that can use and different sources they can go to. What I'm trying to offer patients right now is something which is simpler to read and standardized. It's a full encyclopedia of medical information from each disease and from each perspective, and it's geared towards them and for simple comprehension. So to get the information they need for prognosis, diagnosis, for therapy, different types of therapy treatments, and also what to expect in terms of even your emotional content, what happens to you during the course of a disease which could be affecting you and your family. That's a little bit different.
Okay, now I know your website is coming up in a few weeks, but let's pretend the website's up. What would someone type? What's the website address?
Website's address will be healthscienceeducation.org.
Okay, so that's a lot of words and a lot of letters.
Right.
Will there be a shortened version
eventually
for folks that maybe don't spell that well?
I'll have to eventually make it a little bit shorter. When I find a appropriate domain to make it shorter, I will.
Okay.
Because I know that's a lot to remember. I mean, I call the company with myself HSE, but you just can't use HSE because it's already been appropriated by someone else.
Okay, so health, sciences,
education, health, science, education.
Health, science, education.
.org.
.org. Okay.
Right.
And so once someone types that in, what are they going to see on that main menu or main screen?
The main page will come up, and basically it'll be a very simple page, not too many distractions, not too many, flash things and things, just distract the pages from what actually needs to be done. First, you're going to see the list of diseases, and you pick which one you want to go to. I want the navigation from the main page to what you want to find specifically be just that simple. I mean, through my research, I found that the three points of view which are very important for people who suffer from health literacy. One, they find it difficult to navigate different sites because they have to go through too much other nonsense or different sponsors or whatever. So I'll keep the page as clean as possible so they can get to where they want to go to. So one is the navigation. Two is the simple language, and three, people need visual input. It makes it easier for them to understand, to comprehend things. So I'm going to add. That's why I add the videos to this as well, which really makes my program different than anyone else's. With a full encyclopedia of medical videos given by patients to patients.
Okay.
And that's what So that's why I'm saying quick navigation. I have this disease. You can type it in, or you can find it through a alphabet chart. Click it in, and then just go from there, and you get your information right away.
Okay. Well, thanks. I look forward to having you come back on the program and walk us through the website, perhaps a video, and then some success stories.
Thank you very much. I'd definitely love to come back. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. So with us today was Dr. Noel Weeks Jr., and his website is www.healthscienceeducation.org. Hi, I'm Franne McNeal with HR Energy, and welcome back to Entrepreneurial Journey. Joining me tonight is David White of davidwhitejazz.com. Now, David is phenomenal. He's a phenomenal musician and an entrepreneur. And tonight I'm going to be asking him some questions about how he got started, why he got started, and what's all that jazz about. So, David, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is great. First of all, why music and why jazz?
I love music more than anything in the world, and as much as people require food and water to sustain their bodies, I feel music is required to sustain your spirit. And I've felt that way since I was a young child, even though I couldn't always articulate it. So I knew from an early age that I couldn't imagine a life without music, and that led me to the decision to follow music as my career.
Okay. Now, you said follow music as your career. Is music something that you do for others, or is it something that you do for yourself?
Ideally, both. I think whenever you hear a performance that's just focused inward, it feels cold and stale. And if something's totally just focused on the performers themselves, it's lacking a certain warmth, it's lacking a certain sincerity. So I think the best situation is where musicians and performers bring the audience into their performance and make them a part of it and feed on that energy and give it back to the audience.
Okay. Now, I know a little bit later we'll actually go to your website and hear some of your music. But before we do that, what made you go from being a musician to an entrepreneur?
The reason I took that step was because I wanted to have control over the music that I produced. And also, not only did I want to have control over the final product, I also wanted to hopefully profit from my efforts that I put into music. So I felt the best way to do that would be to form my own band, to form my own record label, to produce my own music, and to distribute my own music. And hopefully that way you'll have the truest sense of what each artist is trying to convey, not only myself, but others who are going to be signed to my label. It'll be the unfiltered ideas, the actual essence of each person coming through on the record without the interference of a record company or producers who are more interested in their ideas than what each individual artist has to say. I want all of the music to be very individualized and very sincere, and I think the only way to accomplish that would be to take control of what you're doing for yourself.
Okay, so it sounds like you're not going to be a starving artist.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Okay, so you mentioned a number of steps, and
yes.
As an entrepreneur, building a business involves a number of steps. I heard you talk about soliciting the musicians, getting them to sort of express themselves creatively, actually having everyone work together, having a product be produced, having it be distributed. What does that cost? How do you know that you can do it in a way that makes money?
I did research before starting. I think that was the most essential step. When you hear the term starving artist, I think it's assumed by many, if not most, that if you're going to be an artist, a musician, then your efforts will not be profitable. But I didn't want to just accept that. I wanted to have the actual figures to say, well, okay, you're saying my record's not going to make money, but how much does it actually cost to produce? So I did a great deal of research. I researched artists who were producing music similar to mine, and I figured out all of their production costs by contacting various studios, contacting various publishers, printers. I just basically made a list of everything that could possibly go into the production, and then I contacted several places in the New York City area and got price quotes, and I came up with a ballpark figure of how much it should cost to produce a record. Then I found out how much you could make from the selling of the record in various venues, and I came up with the break-even point, which for my record is at about 700 units, which I felt was quite reasonable. I feel that 700 units is reasonable. So before I accept the idea that my art form is not viable, I think I'd rather find out for myself and apply the research to it and have actual figures before I accept the common knowledge that artists must be starving.
Now, as a fellow entrepreneur, I'm totally comfortable with the terms that you're sharing. And in fact, I almost wonder, were you an accountant by training?
No, I was not.
Where'd you learn? I mean, you're a musician. Where'd you learn things like break even and research? Why? I mean, that doesn't sound very musical.
Well, in a sense, yes, but I think music is more mathematical than people realize, number one. And secondly, I knew in order to be successful in this, I would have to educate myself. So I went to nyc.gov, and I took literally every class that they had over the course of about 6 months. It took me to finish them. I took, except for the ones specific to restaurant and construction. But other than that, I took every class. And I was in your class also.
That's true.
So I'd like to give you a tip of the hat for putting some of these terms in.
Okay.
Allowing me to be conversant with them.
Okay, good. Now, people who have taken my course know that I like to collect fees, so I'll hold off on that for the moment. But yes, you are comfortable with terms like break even. You talked about 700 units. You talked about building a team. In our course, we covered sort of a soup to nuts of starting a business. What got you started as an entrepreneur, though? I understand the desire to study and be prepared.
Prior to that, I was working for a nonprofit agency as a human resources manager, and that job unfortunately came to an end during the economic crisis, and I found myself with more time to study and research. And initially, as anyone who loses their job through downsizing, you just try to get the exact same job that you had. So as part of my career courses I was taking, they were saying you should be able to demonstrate your value to a company, and preferably you should be able to put it in terms of numbers. So if you hire me, I will be able to increase your sales by X. So it got me thinking about, can I quantify my value as a person, and can I demonstrate that value? But then my next thought after that was, well, if I'm going to be able to do that, why not just apply that to what I actually want to do with my life? And that's what started the wheels turning, and I started challenging some of the ideas about music not being a viable career choice.
So let's take a look into the future. It's 6 months down the road, it's a year down the road. How much revenue do you want to make, or do you expect to make? And what might your profits look like?
I would like to be at 6 months, I would like to be breaking even. I would like to make at least $3K in revenue per month. My first album we just finished recording, and that's going to be available on Amazon starting on the 1st of March. So I priced the units at $17.95, and there's roughly $4 in fees, and the per unit cost to manufacture the CD is about $3. So for each album sold, it's a profit of about $10. And that's not including digital downloads, which will come in a little bit later via iTunes and etc.
So you are really making an enterprise out of this.
I
You've got
really
a
am,
distribution area, a well-known one, Amazon. You're looking at multiple formats. Are you still doing live performances?
Yes, we're going to be having our CD release celebration on the 27th of May at Symphony Space, which is at 95th and Broadway here in New York City.
And will you be charging for that?
Yes.
Like a true entrepreneur. It's our opening, but you're going to pay. That's
Well,
good.
yes and no. Those who, I did a fundraiser to finance
Okay.
the record, and the people who participated in that fundraiser are going to get a free ticket for themselves and a guest. And then people who would just like to attend but weren't part of the fundraiser that we had on Kickstarter, the tickets will be $25 in advance, $30 at the door, $15 for students and seniors.
Okay. I want to take a few moments to break down some of the things that you've talked about. One is pricing.
Yes.
You've essentially come up with a pricing structure that incorporated your costs, looked at the number of units that you needed to sell, gave you the ability to identify projected revenue and profit. You also have identified multiple streams of income through multiple formats and multiple activities. You mentioned Kickstarter.
Yes.
What is that for the folks that are listening, and why did you do that?
Kickstarter is a website that allows not only musicians but creative people of all types, writers, filmmakers, etc., to finance their projects by involving their fan base. So, for example, if you contribute towards a project, then you'll get a reward that's of some sort. My rewards were downloads of the CD itself. We're making a DVD, tickets to the release party, etc. A filmmaker might choose different rewards, but those were mine. And essentially, you're financing your project by selling it in advance. So it requires some faith on the part of those people who are backing you. And to thank them, I listed each person who backed my project in the liner notes of my CD. So every printing of the CD will contain those people's names, because I'm just so grateful to
So
them.
when we bring you back next time, you'll have the CD.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you'll be able to show that.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Great. Well, you impress me as a person that when faced with a challenge, you just look it squarely in the eye and say, I'm going to research you, and I'm going to survive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That trait in me made me a somewhat difficult child. I was a bit defiant. But as an adult, it's something that I've put to my advantage.
So what is the instrument that you play?
I play the trombone. And I also compose and arrange my own music, primarily for a 17-piece jazz orchestra.
Okay. And on your upcoming CD, what's your favorite selection?
My favorite selection is a piece that I wrote called Eyes Closed, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It had some amazing soloists on it, some amazingly talented people playing on it, and I'm especially fond of that track. It's track number 2.
Track number 2. Okay. So what's your website again, so that if people are inspired to move forward, perhaps with their eyes closed, they can still get your CD?
It's at www.davidwhitejazz.com.
Okay. And in a few moments, we'll actually go and listen to the CD. And while we're waiting for that to queue up, tell me, what has been your greatest challenge as an entrepreneur?
My greatest challenge is maintaining faith in myself, maintaining optimism that things will eventually succeed, even if at the current moment it looks bleak. It's just pressing past that and keeping the larger vision in mind.
Okay. So, by the same token, what's the one piece of advice that you'd share with a fellow entrepreneur who's on that journey?
I would say the most important thing is to surround yourself with like-minded people and to disassociate yourself from negative, critical people, because you need to surround yourself with positive energy energy that uplifts you, people who believe in your ideas or at least willing to hear you out, and you need to stay away from the opposite. I think they're probably equally important. There are certain people you need to embrace and some people you need to run from.
Wow. You know, this has been very inspiring. David, I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. David White, who you can find at www.davidwhitejazz.com. And I would encourage you, if you haven't made a note of it already, to check out some of his appearances, his opening, and pick up his CD. I particularly like that title. And would you give it to me again?
Eyes Closed.
Eyes Closed. In some ways, it's a metaphor for entrepreneurism. You don't want to walk forward with your eyes closed. You certainly want to keep your eyes open, and with some research, with some faith, and in David's case, with some music, you can just move forward. Thanks, David.
Thank you. I have a section of live shots that were taken in performance. This was at the Garage Restaurant where I used to perform, and a number of other shots. This is from Kavi Haas in New York City. And this one is of the Purchase Trombone Choir. This is my mentor, Jim Pugh, who's literally one of the best trombonists in the entire world. He's my professor at Purchase. And this is me. I'm here in the trombone choir. A trombone choir is a group of 12 or more trombones. It sounds like it would be loud, but it blends very beautifully. And especially we played Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings, which if you haven't heard it on the trombone, it's very beautiful. The next section is called the Woodshed. I put some of the jazz solos that I've transcribed. By transcribe, I mean listening to the record and then writing down the notation for the music. So I put some of the ones that I've done along with an audio sample, just a clip, so you can get an example of what it might sound like. The first one is by J.J. Johnson. This is a famous album that he played on Night in Tunisia, and students and other people can download the actual PDF of all of these solos that I've transcribed. I'm going to be putting more up as time goes by. I've got one here that I especially like is a Louis Armstrong solo, Strutting with Some Barbecue, off of the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens. That's a great one. Then this next section is called Synergy.